Hi, and welcome to the first episode of Sunday Brunch. Today we have some special guests with us. My name is Miami Johnson, and this is my girl Amber. And this series is meant to encourage and uplift other women in the faith. Just to know that you're not alone, that there are other women in the same position as you that are going through everyday struggles that we all go through. And I think it's encouraging to know that we're not alone and that not only does God got us, but we have a community that we can lean on. So we hope that you enjoy this series and that you enjoy getting to know these ladies, because we are really enjoying this part. So we'll start. I will introduce our guests this week. So over here we have Miss Dona Lunk. She is, her and her husband pastor Emmanuel Church in Bonita, Oklahoma. You've probably seen her at our Girls Night Out event if you follow that. And then we have Miss Caron Visser too. Her and her husband are from South Africa and have just recently moved to the States. So we'll start off, ladies, just kind of tell us about your family, your ministry, how you got into that ministry, and then we'll go from there and have some fun.
Okay. Well, again, I'm Dona Lunk, and my husband and I are the lead pastors at Emmanuel Church in Bonita, and we have 5 children and 5 grandchildren, so we are empty nesters now, which has been a lot funner than I thought it was going to be. Not a lot of tears there. But anyway, and we've been in ministry for probably 20 some odd years, just starting out. We were children's pastors, youth pastors, associate pastors, and then became lead pastors at Emmanuel. We've been there for 8 years as lead pastors. So, and you know, I feel like we've always been called. I think we're all called, but God's just opened doors for us, and we've walked through them, and so that's kind of how we got to where we are at right now.
So I'm Caron Visser. I'm married to Mark, and we've been in the ministry for 38 years. We're in a prophetic ministry, so we don't have a church. We travel, itinerant ministers. So yeah. And with the family, we have 3 children and 3 grandchildren.
Ooh, grandchildren. So are you empty nesters now too? So no one at home?
We're staying with 2 of our children at the moment in Tulsa.
Yes. So, oh, you have twins.
Yeah.
Naomi has twins
I have twin boys. Are they girls or boys?
A boy and a girl.
Boy and a girl. Oh, that's a fun journey, isn't it? Twins. Difficult. Yes, I'm just starting. Mine are 4.
Oh.
So they're just getting into that stage of like they're best friends but enemies at the same time. Like in a flash of a moment, they hate each other and then they love each other. So it's kind of
Mine are 24.
24?
And do the same thing.
So it doesn't end. So I thought there was going to be an age where she'd be like, oh, they get along great at 15. But it's like, no, that's going to stay for them for life. So just let me hang on for the ride. Now, did you have any more after? Because that's where I'm at.
Before the twins, we our firstborn she's 38 now, and yeah.
So okay, so that tells me I shouldn't have any more though. So the twins done you in though. You were like no more after them.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So she's like, okay, but I feel good about my decision of not having any yet. So because I'm still contemplating, can I handle any more? If I do, I could with the grace of God. I could.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how about for you? I know you've been in ministry for a long time. What got you into ministry? What was your calling? What made you all know?
Well, Mark and I were newly married, and he knew. Well, we both know we have a calling on our lives, but he knew he had to go into full-time ministry. So from early in being married, we've been married I think 4 years. He went to Bible school and then into full-time ministry, I think in the beginning he taught at a Bible college after Bible school, and then into our own ministry.
I think that kind of ties into kind of the next is like kind of what are the struggles? I mean, you guys both experienced what it's like to start out in like full-time ministry and kind of trusting God with finances, I'm sure, and your family. But no one really talks to the new people that are about to take that step. Kind of, you know, it's like, yes, take the faith of God, but what do I do next? You know, so kind of walk us through kind of like what were some of the struggles early on of transitioning into like full-time ministry with your family?
Well, Tim worked full-time and I worked full-time, you know, just in the marketplace, and did ministry. You know, it wasn't full-time. We didn't get paid normally for it, but he knew he was going to retire early from GRDA, and we just knew that God was taking us into a new place. You know, we had had dreams and visions about it. God was telling us, preparing us, and so he retired, and it's scary. It's a little bit scary because you think you've had this steady income. You've always had health insurance. You know, you don't think about these things, you know, when you're going into full-time ministry, and you know, we had kids at home still, and so you're just taking that step. And I think, you know, we've always been in ministry, but when you're the lead pastors, you feel the weight. You know, before it was just, oh, we go to church and we're all good, and then all of a sudden, no, you have the weight of the whole church on your shoulders. All the people, what they're going through, you know, their struggles, their successes, or you know, whatever. And so it stretches you. You dive deep into God's word, and just that assurance of, I know this is where he's called me to be. I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And yes, there may be struggles and hard things, but God's right there with us, and he has stretched us and assured us that we were in the right place, doing the right thing time and time and time again. And so it's been exciting, but it's been hard at the same time. So
just kind of the struggle. So I know yours is a little different because he went right into full-time ministry, or went to Bible college, and then
awesome. So I think our ministry is prophetic. Right. So prophetic people never walk anything in a straight line. Never ever. It's just never. It's a zigzag, you know. So from the beginning, I mean, we've looked at other people in ministry who've been pastors or apostles, and they've sort of had a 5-year plan, you know, 5-year, 10-year plans. We've sort of made like a 5-minute plan, you know. It's just, you know, I think prophetic people just, it's not it wasn't, and it's still not a straightforward plan.
So how for you, I mean, listen, I'm OCD and I have got to have a plan. Like, that's me, that's who I am. And if not, I get a great deal of anxiety about where we're going. I actually am really heavily into that, you know, God's in charge and he's the one with the plan. Yes. Because it's hard for me. Is that something that's hard for you, or how do you deal with that?
I think it's something I've had to learn, from wanting a plan for everything, wanting the diary set, and then asking Mark for answers, leaning on him. And then I think I had to get to a place where I had to say to the Lord, I had to say, Lord, okay, Lord, now, you know, you tell me first. You tell me first. And the Lord has been faithful in telling me first. You know, and then I have that peace that when it actually happens, that yes, I knew that.
you can tell Mark, I already knew that.
I knew before you did.
So that's I had to learn that, you know, but it's been really good because we've as a couple we've also learned that never to do anything where the one doesn't have peace.
Yes.
Because we wait. If one of us doesn't have peace about a situation, we wait. So we've had to learn that the hard way. But speaking out and saying to the other one, look, I don't agree. In the beginning, I was very not vocal. I'd say, oh, I don't agree. You know, I think we should do this or this and this. Now I'm categoric. I'm saying I categorically disagree with this. You know, just in case you're getting me in the wrong way. I want you to understand that this is now, you know, and we respect each other that way, and we wait until we both have peace, because it's just not doing it when the one doesn't have peace. It's just not worth the hassle that comes. That definitely comes. Yeah.
Right.
Have you all run into that at all? I see you
I
shaking
do.
your head. So I
You
was
know,
like, wait.
it does, because it affects your lives so dramatically. You have to be on the same page. You know, it affects your marriage. It affects your relationship. Just, you know, as being pastors. And so you have to be on the same page with each other. And a lot of times I'm with you. I'm like, God will tell me something, but He hasn't told Tim yet. And I'm like, it's got to be both of us, because if it's not both of us, then I just put it on a shelf, or He puts it on a shelf until there's peace for both of us, because we're in it together. You know, we're one flesh, and so we have to be on the same page, doing ministry things. And if not, then you wait, and it's not time yet, and God will open the door later. And so it just makes a happy home.
Well, I think that's something that even those that aren't ministry,
Right.
like as a marriage, it's easy to go two different ways. Like,
Yes.
like I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do this, or we're gonna make this decision, or I went into this, and it's like anytime you do that, there's always conflict.
Right.
But then you know, when you're making these big life decisions, it's like we got to be on the same page, because it's just like it's like when I get into an argument with my husband, they always say, "Don't let the sun go down on your wrath." Like me, I get so worked up that I'm like, I have to sleep and then talk to me in the morning. You know, I'm like, I want the sleep. But it's like, it's because my husband's trying to be that. Like, God's telling me to do something, and I'm like, but I don't want to hear that, because that's not what I want to do.
Yes.
But, you know, anytime that I followed, it's always turned out for the best.
Right.
Even though it kind of felt uncomfortable, because you do get excited, I think, about certain things. And then it's like your husband doesn't have that confirmation, and you're like, you know. But then I like what you said. Sometimes it's just putting it on the shelf for right now.
Right.
It may not be a right now thing, but that doesn't mean it's not a never thing.
Right.
Because that's I think
Yeah,
that's
I
super-
remember a time back when my kids were little, and Tim still worked at GRDA, and God had already spoke to both of us that he would not always have a job. And my first thing as a mom was like, freak out, what are we gonna do without insurance?
Right.
You know, like, I have little kids, what are we gonna do? And God just said, it's okay, do you trust me? And so I put it on the shelf. Well, that didn't happen for probably 15, 20 years that it was full time, you know. And so it's like He may tell you these things or speak these things into your life, and you kind of can get worked up about it, but you know it's not for right now.
Right.
It's like, I'm going to trust you you're going to open the door for whenever the right time is. So,
Well, and I really think all women, in a lot of situations, whether it be in their marriage or in the workplace, have like this struggle or tie between either not speaking their mind or, you know, speaking it without exception. But I love what you said about speaking your mind categorically. Like, this is how I feel. This is, and being very clear about it with certainty. And then being able to set that aside for later is a big thing. I think there's so many of us women that just hold those feelings in and don't say anything, or say it with like this conviction, like, and I'm not going to budge, or there's no negotiation, or, you know, my way or the highway type of thing. And really there is a different way. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You can still have that conviction and speak your mind, and still, you know, set that aside until you can work through and pray on it.
Right.
Which is, I think, so important for so many women in so many different scenarios.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad we kind of brought the husbands in, because that goes into the next part. But I mean, talking about your husbands, you guys have both been married a long time. You have kids. Being in ministry, I know it's like you said, you feel the weight of your church, you feel the weight of ministry. He's a prophet. He constantly feels the weight of God, I'm sure. But how do you take time to focus on your marriage? Like, not everything that's ministry related, but just how do you find, you know, just your marriage at the end of the day? You know, I know you have a lot with kids and stuff. It's hard just with us and having
Right.
kids. So I can't imagine having ministry where you have spiritual sheep, spiritual kids, you know, that
Right.
are weighing on you. But, you know, how do you guys take time for your marriage after all these years to keep it strong?
Right. I think with Tim and I, we obviously we date. We always say never stop dating. You have to keep dating.
Mm-hmm.
And then also just taking time away by ourselves, whether it's we go camping or we take a small trip, and
Mm-hmm.
just connecting, you know, where it's just he and I, and we can just share our hearts, share our dreams, or, you know, maybe what God's speaking to us, and knowing it, that our marriage has to be strong to get through what God's called us to. So
Mhm.
it's knowing that nothing can come before our marriage. You know, we have God, and then we have he and I. That's
Mhm.
most important. It can't be ministry.
Mhm.
You know, our marriage is a ministry to each other. We have to be able to take care of each other.
Mhm.
And so I think just getting alone, you know, and just praying together,
Mhm.
sharing our concerns, our worries, you know,
Mhm.
if we're having a bad day. You know, I always tell him I'm his biggest cheerleader,
Right.
and so I'm not against you, I'm for you.
Mhm.
You know, and just to know that our marriage is important. It's got to be a priority.
Mhm.
So
That's good. How about for you all?
Well, like I said, we did this totally differently. We've been married 38 years, and Mark has traveled for about 11 of those years in total.
Mm-hmm.
So we were it was 2019, we were in Korea on ministry, and we were walking down the road, and we were talking, and then I said to Mark, you know, every ministry trip that he goes on, we go on together, is normally 3 weeks to a month. So we'll go to Korea or Finland or wherever, and it's, you know, you go that distance, come to the States, it's been 3 weeks to a month.
Mm-hmm.
And he has been to Korea 97 times at that point. And I said to him, just calculate 97 months. And I think it worked out to something like 7 years.
Wow.
And then plus all the other countries that he's been to.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those ministry trips to Korea, the kids were young.
Right.
I never traveled with him. So we have been separated for nearly 10 years in total,
Mm-hmm.
or more even. So that's been huge, you know, and for a large part of the time I felt like a single mom,
Right.
because, you know, for at least 4 months to 6 months of a year, every second month he'd be away. And even if he was traveling within our own country,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'd try and go with when I could. So from when the twins were born, our eldest daughter, it was a little bit different with her because we did travel together then.
Okay.
But then when you've got a 16-year-old and you've got two 2-year-old twins, not many people want to, you know, to host you.
Right.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes difficult. So while they were at school, and I also said, no, I'm not going to disrupt their schooling.
Mm-hmm.
And in South Africa, the schooling system is different. It goes from January to December. We don't have a 3-month
Oh.
break.
Very fancy.
So we've got 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 weeks, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's been different in that aspect. Yeah.
So how do you keep that connection or that closeness? Because I'm
With-
sure that's challenging.
Very challenging. So
Mhm.
we literally steal time.
Mhm.
You know, we tried scheduling things, and
Mhm.
thankfully our other minister in South Africa, he had a saying, and it was the tyranny of the urgent. And he'd say that, you know, the urgent is a tyrant, and it will come, and whenever we try to schedule a date or something, there would be a tyrant and would come. Somebody was going to now kill themselves. They've had this problem for their entire life. But on our date night, they had to deal with that problem.
Right.
You know, so we had to learn how to just take time when we had it available and use the moment. Yeah.
Wow, you're my hero.
I know she is my hero. She's like,
I know.
I don't want to be a single mom. Yeah, I don't want. No.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
And then we had COVID, and then we were together for 3 years.
I know, that must have been an adjustment to have them around all the
so
time.
what was that like?
Yeah.
Was that a challenge?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you not have a trip scheduled yet? You're about to leave.
I'm
Yeah.
sure this country's opened up.
Yeah, I'm sure. Checking the passport notifications.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they're open. They're open.
Yeah, I can imagine because Tim's longest trip was to the Philippines, and I think it was like 16 days.
Yeah.
And you get into this routine of like doing things yourself,
Right.
like taking care of the kids. So when they come home
Mhm.
and they're back into their role, and you're
Yeah.
like, no, I've been doing this
Yeah.
for the last
Yeah.
16 days, and
Yeah.
I've got a
Yeah.
routine, and
Yes, it was
it's an
working.
adjustment. Right, and
Yeah.
that would be an adjustment, but you just had to do it a
Yeah.
lot.
Debrief.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure you had conversations before you got home. Like, hey, I have them bedtime this time. Do not disrupt when you come home. You know, like they are on a schedule. You're just coming into the schedule.
Have you met my husband?
Yeah, I know. That's why I was like, that must have been fun to go back and forth all the time. I'm sure. I don't know how you survived that because I would be the same way. Like, Caron, like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I've got this down.
yes, this is me.
Well, and you really spoke to it. I mean, a little bit. Well, a lot. But, you know, in terms of sacrifices, what kind of sacrifices have you had to make or your family had to make to support, you know, your husband in ministry? I mean, what, and you spoke to a lot of those, and I'm sure you have had to deal, or your children, one, have had to deal with some of those. What are some of those struggles?
I think it's hard on your kids because you are in that fishbowl,
Right.
and people are looking at your kids
Mm-hmm.
extra.
Yeah.
You know, not like they have their own problems with their kids,
Yeah.
but sometimes your kids are under the microscope, and you know, it just. I know our kids felt it. You know, in certain situations, we just always encourage them, love them, protect them. But at the same time, there's just times when ministry would call him away and he doesn't get to go to an event, a family event, or you know, he's always studying on Saturday, so it's hard to have a family thing on a Saturday because he's in his office preparing for Sunday, and then you know it starts all over after Sunday. He starts on Monday to prepare for Wednesday. It's just it's a cycle, you know, and so you do. There are sacrifices that your kids have to pay and that you pay, and that not that it's bad because you know it's for the kingdom. You know it's for God's glory, and you know they're called to this. You know, Mark traveling. You know he's called to do this, and I just I can't look at it in a negative way. You know, it's just part of the journey.
Right.
You know, as far as
Yeah.
walking it out.
Which is a very mature thing to say. You know, I mean, I look at my kids and the things that they don't understand, and I just think, you know, if they were in that fishbowl, they would really struggle because, you know, I mean, it's part of that growing and learning, you know, that mature.
Yes. And the
you know,
mama bear
maturing
wants to come out
in
in
our faith. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
I can't even imagine.
when it comes to their kids, you know,
Yeah.
like what? You know,
Yeah.
my perfect children?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How could they?
Yeah.
But they do.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're not perfect, but it's
Yeah.
just, I think it's hard when you have people coming and, you know, might point something out and say, you know, you're the pastors. And I think the kids, it's just tough. You know, it's tough.
It is tough, and I think that was one of the things we talked about at our ladies' night. Is that it's a hard mom moment when our kids are struggling, and you know at some point they all do, and we have to let them as much as we don't want to try to steer them back on path. But it's certainly, especially living in that fishbowl, can be. I can't even imagine.
Well,
I just can't even imagine.
I know it sounds crazy, but it's sad to think that we can't extend grace to our pastors. Like we talk about extending grace, but when we see like their kids doing something that maybe not be the expectation or something, it's like sad to say like, oh, you can't. I mean, that's who you need to extend grace to. Like they have the weight of the church on their shoulders. Like they're not going to be perfect. Like you heard it here, guys. we're not
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah, they're not perfect.
Well,
you know,
and
they struggle.
even when your kids are in ministry with you,
Yeah.
I think it's easy to get in this place where you're almost harder, or you expect more out of your
Right.
children that are in ministry with you than you might somebody else who is not in your family that's in ministry
Yeah.
with you. Like there's this higher standard, you know, like, well, it's a reflection of me. That should not happen, you know. That should not.
And I would like to think that for all of us, it would be refreshing, you know, not just extending the grace, but to realize that we're not alone, that no one's perfect. Because I think there's like this false stereotype that because you're in ministry, you're going to make the right decision every time and everything's going to be perfect. And your kids are going to make the right decision every time and it's going to be perfect. But, you know, I think, you know, especially for me at least, I feel some comfort in, you know, we don't all have to be perfect, and you know, certainly it's not just extending the grace, but it's feeling like you're worthy too, because we all have struggles, right? And we're not hiding them, and it just, you know, is what it is, and the Lord's going to help us through it, and it just gives us more conviction, you know, to know that He can. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's just a great thing to talk about, because it's just crazy to me, you know, like I remember growing up in church, and you know, the pastor's kids are like the perfect things, like you know, or even like, you know, I've seen people get upset with the pastor or the pastor's wife because they didn't react in the moment a certain way they wanted to react,
Right.
like they're expecting them to react or something, and it's just kind of like, you know, that's not what it's about, you know. Because I have to extend grace. This is my best friend, and she's not always going to react the way I want to. It's like I can't put that expectation on my pastor or a minister coming in. But I think I would ask you, like, you guys have each other, so you're friends. But I mean, you guys have found friends probably in the ministry along the way that you can lean on in those moments. And I mean, how important is that for you guys to not feel alone? Because I know you're just the fishbowl of the church. Like, it's really hard for you're just in this fishbowl. You come into a church, and it's like, or when it's a visiting, you know, minister, you know, it's like that minister and his wife are like, it's kind of like I hate to say it, it's like a celebrity coming, you know. It's like, you know, it's like
you're
they're perfect. You're put on the pedestal, and all eyes are on you. So how important is it to have friends that you can just be real with? You know, have at your house and just have dinner and just feel like you're just gonna let your guard down, and it's not perfect.
You answer.
I think it's very important. It's very important. But I think, you know, in my life, those friends have been few, very, very few, and they've been global. They haven't always been in the town or the place that I wanted.
Yeah, I think it's the same, somewhat the same. You know, you have friends other places that you stay connected to, but it is hard when you're in a church. You know, you can't just let it all out there. You know, Tim's my best friend. That's what I say. Tim's my best friend because he knows the good, the bad, the ugly, and when I, you know, losing it or whatever. And you don't always feel the freedom to just share everything. You know. You've got to be careful, and I hate to say that. That sounds terrible, but you do. You can't just go and share everything with somebody who is also in your church. I have friends. I have a lot of friends in my church, but as far as very close people that I know I can just share my heart with and trust. Yes, trust is a huge thing, or they're not going to go gossip it to somebody else or share it with somebody else. And you know, you need those, but they're very few. They're rare, and when you find one, you better grab a hold of it. So
I think that's good advice for other women whose husbands are ministers or pastors or young pastors coming up. I think that's great advice that, you know, try to find those friends to lean on, because if you don't, I can only imagine it's just going to tear you down. Like the weight of what you guys go through, it's just going to tear you down if you have no one to kind of share that weight with you every now and then, or someone you can call and be like, I just need to talk.
And they're not normally, to me, what I've seen, they're not in ministry with you, you know, necessarily. they're somebody on the outside or somebody, you know, that you may a childhood friend or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, but typically I haven't seen it. You know, I had a very close friend that we were in ministry with, and when we left, it was hard. You know, it was hard for our whole family because we were all so close. Our kids were close. You know, we did things with them, vacations, and then when we left, it was like a death almost. And still to this day, it's still painful. You know, because there was such a closeness in the friendship, and you feel like, well, I'll never have that type of friend again. You know, you're almost scared.
Yes.
Scared to get that close, you
Yeah.
know,
Absolutely.
because of the, that might not work situation.
Yeah.
So,
That's a tough one.
yeah.
So, you know, you talked about trust. On the flip side of trust, how do you get people to trust you, to come to you without judgment? Because I think that's really the hardest thing, and what so many people are struggling with is that they need to come to the Lord, and they need the Lord in their lives, and they're struggling with something.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's social media and all these, you know, portrayals of a perfect life, and we don't live perfect lives. None of us do. So how do you, you know, build trust, you know, with the people, you know, in your church, in your congregation, or, you know, when you're out doing ministry? How do you build that trust without judgment, so that they feel like they can come to you when they're you know, when they're vulnerable, when they need you most?
Well, for me, Jesus looks like love, and so I need to look like love. I need to accept that person where they're at, because God loves them for who they are. He sees the gold in them, and so I gotta see through His eyes and see the gold in them and pull that out. And it's okay that you're a mess.
Right.
He's not asking you to clean up and then come to Him. I'm not either. So I have to look like love. I have to come to Him in love, and I have to share the love of Jesus. It's the love of Jesus that draws men to repentance. It's not me being critical and, you know, saying, well, I can't believe you did this. You know, that's not Jesus. And so that's what He's called us, is to look like love, to look like Him, so that people are drawn. It's almost like an aroma, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I've only been in your church once, but I felt that. I did feel that.
yeah.
So you're doing a good job. How about for you?
I think, you know, when you're itinerant and moving around a lot, building trust takes time. You know, it's not just one meeting and come and that. But in saying that, the prophetic and the Lord does so much. He will show me something in a person, or to deal with, or to pray with in that person, which immediately opens everything up, and that builds trust. You know, the prophetic word builds trust.
Right.
Put it that way. The Lord builds trust.
Yeah.
So that speeds it up. But building trust in a ministry setting more than in a relationship setting, if you know what I mean. So definitely for ministry, that would be one way of building trust.
Yeah. And that's so powerful, I'm sure, for most people, that it just opens doors wide open.
Oh yeah, I think I love what you said, because I think sometimes there's a pressure of some ministers they have an idea of what they want to do, but then letting God do it is a different setting. And sometimes when you go with what you want to do, maybe that creates distrust. But when you guys know that we're going to go in this and do what the Lord tells us to do, that's all we're doing. You know, just what He tells us to do, then God is able to make that trust. And it's, I think, and like you said, it's just literally taking yourself out of the equation and just letting God's love just flow through you. Like, I've got to let go of who I am, pretty much. Put myself on the back burner during those times. Just let, you know, God's love go through you. But I also know that, you know, after a ministry meeting or after meetings at church, you're drained. Like, you're going to be spiritually drained. I mean, it takes a lot out of you, and I'm sure prophetic ministry takes a lot out of you, after he does a meeting. So I just, how do you not only refill spiritually, but physically and mentally, how do you re-energize for, after something so draining? What are ways that personally that you guys take for yourself, not maybe with your husband, so something you do for yourself that just makes you feel good.
Yeah.
What are some ways that you kind of re-energize or need to re-energize if you haven't done it? Maybe you need to take some time, even if you haven't done it yet.
We need that right now. Yeah. I think just on the spiritual side is just spending time in God's presence. Just whether it's with worship music or just kind of soaking in His presence and just listening and being quiet. I don't always have to do the talking. And that really fills me back up. I should always be overflowing.
Yes.
I shouldn't be a cup that's just to the top. I should be always full where I'm overflowing or it's flowing out. And then just for myself, my kids, my grandkids, as chaotic as it can be with 5 little ones of 4 and under, it can get pretty crazy and loud, and either they're best friends or they hate each other, in a moment. But I love it. I love my grandkids. I love that chaos, I guess, for the moment, or getting my nails done, or just taking a drive. With Tim, we'll just take a drive and recharge. So.
You still thinking?
That's good.
I took a few minutes.
I think, how do we recharge? I think, looking at Mark and myself, I'm an introvert and Mark's an extrovert. And for me, I need to spend time alone at some point. I need to spend time alone with myself or with the Lord. I need time out. Mark, I gain strength from being alone. Mark gains strength from being with people. So even in just a normal setting, he will gain strength just chatting with people. But he does need to obviously spend time with the Lord, so having downtime. But for me, I'm passionate about art. I love art. So painting, having time to paint, having actually enough time to take the paints out and paint.
She's good too.
Going to art galleries is something that I really, really love. Just that for me is amazing.
I think that's great to hear, because I think a lot of ministers' wives, or just even us, it's like it's hard to not feel guilty when you take something for yourself. Just as a mom of young kids, if I go to the grocery store for 2 hours, it's hard to not feel guilty that I'm enjoying being alone without anyone tugging on me or wanting anything. Like, it's hard not to feel guilty because I should be mom, I should be wife, I should be at home cooking dinner or whatever it is. Or, for you guys, you should be doing something that's ministry related all the time. But it's like, no, like you have to recharge yourself to be able, like you said, to pour into someone else.
Or just normal people.
And it's like, it's good to hear that. Like, okay, it's okay for me to take a moment out every now and then.
I think it's very important, because I know myself, my character changes if I don't have time out. I become a monster. So you actually you've got to say to yourself, no, hold on, I can feel craziness coming. I've got to have time out, and I've got to do something. And with Mark as well, I can see it. I see when he's going to crash, and it's not pretty. And he's been there before, where it's been really not healthy, really not good, and for his health. And I have to be the one saying, no, sorry. That's no longer happening, cancel a few things.
So being intentional about it.
I think in ministry, you think, I always have to say yes. But no, it's okay to say no to things and no to people, because Tim's phone can ring 24/7, early in the morning, late at night, and it's just constant. And it's like, okay, it would it can have you going a million directions,
Yes.
except for the direction you should be going. And so it's okay to say no. This is okay. I'm not. I can't. I'm not available, or I'm not going to pick up the call if it's an emergency. Leave a message and I'll call you back. Which normally he doesn't. He picks up the phone, but it's okay to say no. Make sure if you're saying yes to something that God's in it.
Yeah.
Because the enemy can come and have you busy.
Yeah, make you busy.
Busy, and then there's no time to fill your cup.
I think that's what we're busy. We run a mentoring group as well, and that's one of the things that we're dealing with at the moment is boundaries in leadership, and setting specific boundaries. The leaders setting boundaries,
Right.
and and for people concerned, respecting those boundaries, but setting good boundaries, because there's a lot of manipulation around. People will manipulate to get. Sometimes I don't even know what they're getting. To
They
get
think
what?
They think they're getting something.
Attention maybe,
Attention
or
or something that's feeding it. But I think to set healthy boundaries and to watch out for the tyranny of the urgent, because there's always something that, and when you ask a few questions, you find out that problem's been there for quite a while, and it probably will continue. But and I've noticed that once you carve out a certain amount of time for yourself, the tyranny of the urgent, and that's Satan trying to come and take your little bit that you've, and that's where a boundary just needs to be put, and just say, no, I'm sorry, it's unavailable, it's in ink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's for any household. I think, especially even marriages where, like, you and your husband both work, and she has a job that they can call you at any time. Like, she's a manager, she can be called into work, and I think that's super important. Is sitting with your spouse and having that clear, like, these are the boundaries, and this is what we gotta stick to, because we have to have our marriage time, or we have to have our family time with our kids that's uninterrupted. Like, they need you as dad, or they need me as mom, just as mom. No one calling or pulling me away. I think that's so important, and I love that, because it's like when you're both on a clear page, it's like, hey, what did we just sign? What did we just sign to? Okay, like, what did we just sign? We just signed and said no, we wouldn't do that, or no, like my phone goes off at a certain time at night, or and I think that was a big thing, because I used to be a manager too in the same position, and it was like, I'm gonna just charge my phone downstairs at night, because I just don't want to be bothered. I'll deal with it in the morning, but it's like, for me, it was like, when me and my husband went to bed, that was like our actual wind down time. Every other time, it's kids around us screaming and stuff, and so having no distraction was like when we caught up for the day, or had to have that moment, and it's like, I don't need my phone going off and distracting me, or whatever it is. So how important is that? And to just find that time, especially when you have little kids, or whatever it is going on. So,
and I think communicating that clearly is the biggest thing, right? Because it takes the pressure and the expectation off of you, because you've already clearly left it on a voicemail or on an email that I'm unavailable. But if it's an emergency, or having someone else available to them, I'm unavailable, but if it is an emergency, you can contact this person, or you can leave it. But I think that's so important. I mean, and I wrote that down. The tyranny of the urgent, and of course, we hear this all the time. But just being intentional, making a plan to keep us on track. We plan everything else in our lives. We plan dinner. We plan, the grocery store. We plan doctor's appointments. All the things that are important, and this is equally as important. So planning that and communicating it clearly is a big no for me.
No, I think that's great.
Good takeaways.
And I guess just to wrap it up, I mean, ladies, what is one thing you would tell someone, a younger version of you that may be coming into this spot? Like, what's one thing you would tell them, or one word of advice, even if it's not necessarily spiritual? Maybe it's like what you said, make clear boundaries now with your husband or your spouse. But one or a couple things, what advice can you give to them? Because I know sometimes it's a lonely road because they don't have anyone that's gone through this in their life before. I know we see a lot of minister wives, and this is like first generation ministry. Or, you marry into a pastor, or you marry a pastor, and it's like, I don't know what to do. There's no guidebook for how I'm supposed to live this life. So, what's some advice that you can give?
Well, I think one thing is being a pastor's wife. I always, I'm the pastor's wife.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what am I?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. Tim has his calling. He's the pastor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just the pastor's wife.
The plus one.
The plus one.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I have a calling as well.
Yes.
So God has something that's for me that's different from him.
Mm-hmm.
It's mine. And so I have to get my eyes off of, I'm not the pastor's wife.
Mm-hmm.
I am Donna Lunk. I have a calling. God has a calling on my life. What is that? And I've got to know for myself and then go after that. Is it ministry for women or kids or whatever? Yes, I'm still the pastor's wife and I'm still going to do pastor wife things, but I have an identity in myself. I am a daughter of the Most High God, and I have a calling on my life. And so, what is that? And don't get lost in this. I'm just the pastor's wife.
That's really good.
I think we're living in a time of the end time harvest, and I think that we need to stop stereotypes altogether, because I just look at what the Lord is doing. He's creating things that were not there before ever, positions that were never ever available. So if you're looking to somebody to follow what they've done, you're in a bad place, because you're copying somebody else's calling, and you're in a very, very bad place. And I think as people, if we look at other people with a stereotype, we need to stop that now, because there are positions becoming available. There are assignments that the Lord is doing and giving to people that were never ever there before. Not done. Nobody can copy this. So we need to look. The person who is going into ministry, you need to listen clearly to the Lord and get a clear vision for your future, because perhaps it has never been done before, and you're thinking I'm wrong, I've done this wrong, I should be doing it in a different manner. You're not wrong. This is what God has planned and preordained for your life. So don't try and do it some other way, because it's really not going to work.
Right, and you just get frustrated
And
in the mix of all that.
The Lord will take you around that mountain again, and it'll just be a waste of time.
Yes, that's good, because we even feel that in ministry as a church. They're always like, well, we did it this way, way. And I'm like, but God's calling us to do it this way. It looks different, it's new, and it might be a little scary. It's not been done before, but this is what God's calling us to do right now, because times are different, things are different, and like she said, God's doing new things in new ways, and it's a generation that's being reached that is in turmoil. And they don't even know their identity or who they are, and so God's using different ways to reach this generation that's coming up, and it looks different, and it's uncomfortable, when you get in that little. We've always done it this way. No, it looks different now. He's putting new wine into new wineskins. It's not the old wineskin. It's new. It looks different.
I think that's confirmation for me. But it's just, anytime, even this podcast, and I'm just, because I haven't really talked about this podcast, but this isn't done. This is done in the secular world, the girls' night out. That kind of conversation is done in the secular world, and it's done, alcoholism and all kinds of stuff, but there's a unity when you can bring people in, when people know that they're not alone, and there's such a unity, I think, coming instead of having these divisions of different churches, different ministries, like I'm doing it this way, I'm competing against you to do this. I think God is just bringing in the new things to unify one church. Like it's one body, because one body by itself is going to be very strong. But if the devil can distract you and say, oh no, we always did it this way, well then there's an automatic division between the generations or whatever it is. And I just think there's just a beautiful unifying thing coming, and it's just like this. It's taking a new idea and it's just something to unify, because the goal of this is to make others feel like I'm not alone, it's okay. Like someone else has gone through struggles that I've gone through. Like I'm not crazy for thinking or feeling like a single mom because my husband's in ministry around the world 6 months out of the year. Like that's not crazy apparently. Like I'm validated in that feeling. Or it's not crazy to think that I just feel like I'm in the shadow of my husband as a pastor. You know, I just feel like I'm living in the shadow. Like where's my calling? And I think that's so unifying, because anytime the devil can make you feel like you're alone, then he's got you. He's got you right where he wants to. He can knock your feet out from under you. But when you feel like you're connected to something, when you feel like you're connected to the lifeline of God, let alone, then your strength has come. And I just feel like, you know, there's just such a unifying, like you said, the new things are coming, and it's doing it just to unify. Like it's just to unify. Like it's not to cause division or cause, you know, strife between the generations that are still, you know, wanting to do the old thing, but it's to unify and bring you together and connect you with other believers, because that's what we should be. So, but I mean, I think today's been really fun, and I think it has been really nice. I didn't even think there was a camera here for the whole 30 minutes. I kind of forgot about that after 2 minutes. So, I mean, I'll just say thank you, ladies, for talking with us and being, you know, real and letting us into kind of the lives that you guys have led. I think it's been really great, and I've learned a lot from it. I mean, you're sitting here writing notes, things to take home, because this, for me, like, you know, I'm kind of an introvert myself, so I can't imagine like having to answer the phone. I could never be a pastor because I hate talking on the phone. So if I have someone calling me all the time, I'm like, no, like I'm not gonna answer. They're gonna be like, you know, the pastor is dead because she's not answering her phone.
I always say, just text them.
Yeah.
I'm calling them.
No, I'm like, just text me what you need. Like, let me just text you. Yes, and so
I'm like the text with the emoji.
Yeah, like thumbs up. Like I got what you said, or you know, I love that iPhone say read, because then I don't have to reply if it's not a question, right? Like I read it, I got what you meant. You know, like some things don't have to have a reply. But yeah, no, I think it's been just awesome just to hear the stories of you guys, and you know, great things are to come, and I can't wait for next time, and we'll probably have you on again.
Yeah. I think you all will reach a lot of people. So.
Oh yeah. And so, so we'll just close out next month, August. We'll have some other ladies joining us. We're kind of confirming that right now. But just keep following on the podcast now. Like you can hit link and follow, and then you'll get notifications. We have a Facebook page and Instagram, so that you'll know kind of a bio of who's coming next for August. And then you'll get the link to this one, so you can share it and send it to your friends, send it to your family. It's a quick kind of listen maybe on your way to work. I know I like to listen to podcasts on my way to work, or that's usually my worship time, is that 30 minutes between home and work. I'm like, I don't even know how I get to work, because I'm like, how did I get here? Like, God drove me the whole way, because I've been worshiping this whole way. I'm like, shit, I've driven the whole way with God. You know, angels must have carried the car, because I don't remember driving. But, well, thank you, ladies, for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
Yes, absolutely. All right.
Have a great month.
Yeah.